The first time I saw the cartel's operation, I thought I was staring into the mouth of hell. By the time I realized how deep I was, it was already too late to turn back. My name is Daniel Okoro. I was a journalist, or at least I thought I was, until I stumbled onto the truth about the oil cartel. It started with a tip, a voice on the phone, low and rushed, warning me to follow the pipelines. At first, I thought it was just another wild goose chase. Stories about oil theft in the Niger Delta weren't new. Everyone knew about the stolen crude, the sabotaged pipelines, the polluted rivers. But this was different. "Come to Elect Creek," the voice said. "Midnight. You'll see everything." I arrived at the creek under the cover of darkness, armed with only a camera and a notebook. The air reeked of oil and decay. Hidden among the mangroves, I watched as the shadows moved with purpose. There were dozens of them, men with rifles slung over their shoulders, siphoning crude from a pipeline into massive drums. The operation was meticulous, industrial, and at the center of it all was a barge the size of a football field, its deck loaded with stolen oil. But it wasn't just the scale that shocked me, it was the faces. Among the workers were men in military uniforms, their boots crunching against the oily ground as they barked orders. Soldiers, working hand in hand with the thieves. I snapped a photo, my hands trembling. I barely made it out alive. My contact, a local fisherman named Sanny, was waiting for me at the edge of the creek. "Did you see?" he asked, his voice tight with fear. "I saw," I said. He nodded grimly. "You've just scratched the surface. The real bosses, they don't get their hands dirty, but they're watching." The next day, I published my first story. Photos of the operation, details about the military's involvement, questions about who was really pulling the strings. It caused a ripple, enough to get people talking, but not enough to bring the cartel down. Then the threats started. A note slipped under my door. "Stop digging." A phone call in the middle of the night. "You don't know who you're dealing with." And then Sandy disappeared. I couldn't stop. I was too deep, and the truth was too big. I started connecting the dots. High-ranking politicians, oil executives, even foreign companies, all tied to the black market oil trade. The cartel wasn't just a gang of thieves. It was a sprawling network of power and corruption. But the more I uncovered, the more dangerous it became. One night, as I drove home from a meeting with a whistleblower, I noticed the headlights in my rearview mirror. They followed me for miles, sticking close no matter how many turns I took. My heart pounded as I realized they weren't just following, they were hunting. They forced me off the road. The car flipped, metal crunching, glass shattering. When I came to, I was being dragged from the wreckage by two men in black masks. "You should have listened," one of them growled, his fist colliding with my face. I woke up in a warehouse tied to a chair. The air stank of oil and fear. A man stepped out of the shadows, his suit crisp, his demeanor calm. He was the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to command respect. "You've been causing problems," he said, lighting a cigarette. "We don't like problems." "People deserve to know the truth," I spat, my lip bleeding. He chuckled, a sound devoid of humor. "The truth won't save you." They left me there, bound and alone, as the building went up in flames. But they underestimated me. I managed to free myself, crawling through the smoke and flames until I found an exit. Burned, bruised, and furious, I knew I couldn't stop now. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one. I went underground, using fake names and burner phones to continue my work. With every story I published, I exposed more of their network. Protests erupted across the Delta. International media picked up the story. The cartel was bleeding, but it wasn't dead. Then I got another call. "You've caused enough damage," the voice said. "Come to Lagos if you're ready to finish this." It was a trap. I knew it, but I went anyway. The final showdown happened in an abandoned oil refinery on the outskirts of Lagos. I brought hidden cameras and a desperate hope that I'd make it out alive. The cartel's bosses were there. Politicians, generals, and oil executives all gathered in one room. They thought they were safe, but I wasn't alone. I'd tipped off an international watchdog group. And as the meeting began, the refinery was surrounded by armed agents. The firefight was chaos, gunshots, screams, and the acrid smell of burning oil. I barely escaped with my life, but when the dust settled, the cartel's leaders were in handcuffs, their empire crumbling around them. I'm still in hiding, but the story isn't over. The fight for justice in the Niger Delta is far from finished.